Hi, everybody. It is our October edition of Stories Live, the Spirit Realm. I've been very careful to not call this the Halloween show because I feel like, every show that we do is Halloween pretty much. I mean, we've usually got Shannon Lawrence on here or Rebecca Hodgkins or Josh Schlossberg or, Stephen Graham Jones, for example, at one point. So lots of horror writers on here all the time. But tonight, we wanted to make it, a little extra spooky and a little extra fun. So we've got some bubbling drinks. We've got spooky music for you. I've got, the most elaborate backdrop I've ever done in the history of Stories Live, our very short history. So I just have a few short announcements to make. So tonight we are going to have some very exciting people reading. Just to go over it really quickly, we're going to have music by the Dollhouse Thieves, followed up by Matt, who's going to read us a story. We have Julia, who I'm guessing it's probably going to be something vampire-y. Rebecca Hodgkins is going to read some spooky poetry. And then we've got Aaron Michael Ritchey, who you have probably heard of because he writes books like When He Wakes Up in the Morning and then, another one at night and everything else. So, and I don't know. And, he's, as I have already told him once tonight, just a ridiculously handsome man. I don't know how he does it all, but he's amazing. What can I say? And then we will have Thomas Kichi, also known as Tom Broderick, who will be reading us something that I am sure is going to be dark and bizarre. Let's see. So the other thing is just, I wanted to remind you all to please subscribe to our channel, because those subscribers, even though I'm not making money off of this channel, nobody here is making money. But if we get to at least 100 subscribers, we can claim our own link on YouTube, and then that will make it a lot easier for you to find us and all the previous broadcasts we've had. And our next show is on the theme Apartment Life, and it's going to be on November 18th at 7 p.m. And the prompt, which was provided by Deb Courtney, we've never had a prompt before, but it's not living so close to others that bothers me so much. It's the possibility of finding other people's toenails in the carpet. So if you're interested in reading for that, please do let me know. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring the Dollhouse Thieves out here, and we'll get our show on the road. And wow, that was a really fast introduction. So I'm sorry. I will repeat some of this information later. So let's see. Here we go. All right.
Hello.
Hi, Nikki. How are you and Luke doing tonight?
We're pretty good. How are you doing? We're so excited to be back to Stories Live.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm sure you've got some appropriately creepy stuff prepared.
That's right. Yes. We're going to start with a Barry saxophone improv into a song that y'all have probably heard of before. And we're going to be doing some of our originals and some spooky covers for you tonight to kick off the evening of spooktacular readings and awesome times. So thanks for being here.
All right, sounds good. Well, I will take myself out of the equation and I'll let you two have the floor.
Thanks, Amy.
All right.
Feeling so unsure as I take your hand, lead you to a street door. As the music dies, your eyes come to my silver screen, all inside. Oh, I gotta dance again. Got no income, no tears and so pretend. No, I'm sitting down there in the sheet there. Make this change, I'll be there. I'll never dance again. Maybe I dance with time can never mend. Careless whispers of a girlfriend to the heart behind. Ignorance is kind. There's no comfort in the truth. With you. Maybe it's better than we always say. Now that you
Thanks. That was our spooky intro for you. Now we're going to switch things up and do some of our original songs. Nice. This is an upbeat funeral song. I need a pick.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like Nikki said, we're gonna switch up here and do a couple original tunes.
All right.
So that guitar.
Woo.
I'm gonna call an audible here. All right.
Sad baby.
All right. So we're gonna switch things up here because sad babies happen. So this is an old jazz tune that seemed appropriate for this evening. Hope you enjoy. Those fingers in my hair that shine on either stare, that strips my conscience bare, it's witchcraft. And I've got no defense for it, the beat is too intense for it. What good would it do? Cause it's witchcraft, wicked witchcraft. And although I know it's only taboo, when you are asking me to me, my heart says yes indeed to me. Proceed with what you're leading me to. It's such an ancient pitch, but none I wouldn't switch, 'cause there's no nicer witch than you. It's witchcraft, wicked witchcraft. But although I know it's strictly taboo, when you are asking me, my heart says yes indeed to me. Proceed with what you're leading me to. It's such an ancient pitch, but one I wouldn't switch, 'cause there's no nicer witch than you. 'Cause there's no nicer witch than you.
Yay. Yeah, you like that? Yeah.
That was a little witchcraft for you. That's spooky, right?
All right, let's go back to our originals.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So this one is inspired by a funeral. Spooky. We sit around your grave and we said our goodbyes. I wanted to laugh and I wanted to cry, but I felt no emotion was able with you down. I just wanted to shake you right out from the ground, 'cause you were somebody's baby that you lose. And no one believed this is why you would choose. Now your family is broken, they're calling out your name. I like you for you. Now you can't be the shame no more. Not a soul, not a sound accompany your vow. Your Jesus must be proud, and now we see him cry all the time. Crying just for you. Well, maybe you are them too. Well, baby, I'll do for you. I didn't even look cozy in your three-piece suit. You were surrounded by those roses and all those pictures of your youth. Ain't it funny how we born you? Ain't it silly that we care? We think of all these things you like, and you're not even there no more. Oh, and not a soul, not a sound accompany your vow. Your Jesus must be proud, and now we see him cry all the time. They're crying just for you. Oh, maybe you are them too. Well, baby, I'm good for you. Now the funeral is over, and there's nothing left to say. Shuffle to our cars, we go our separate ways. But the sun will keep on shining, doesn't matter if you're gone, 'cause the world is gonna spin, and without you it'll go on and on and on and on. Without you will go on and on and on and on and on. Without you will go on and on and on and on and on. Without you will go on and on and on and on and on. And not a soul and not a sound lay witness when you fell. Now maybe there's a hell for all the little girls and all of the boys who give up and take their lives and make their mamas cry and leave us wondering why. Oh. Thank you. So that was a song that was inspired by a funeral. And this next one is also a song I like to write songs based on what people tell me. And this was I was on the phone with someone and she said that she could no longer be in a relationship and play shadow to a ghost. And so I thought that was a really cool line. So that's what this is about. And so Luke's gonna play trombone on this one. We might have a crying baby in the background. That's just what it is. Writing letters to those useless years. Remember how you buried them beneath all of the years. But you can't wonder where she is now, and I'm trying to understand those years. How they argue everywhere, trying to lead it, but they don't seem to fall. And I know I can listen, but you gotta understand my feelings. I will play your shadow to your goal. I'm gonna play your shadow to your goal. That she's gone in your past. Are you and you say and you whisper like you cry, it isn't mine. It's never mine, don't let me go. You're too dangerous, you see me. Let's not be your thinking of, 'cause it's been too long here morning. I know that honey, looking for time. Then I will play your shadow. I'm gonna play your shadow to your goal. I'm gonna play your shadow to
All right. Well, I think that kind of does it for us right now.
Oh, poor kiddo.
Yeah. You just, wanted her mom.
Oh, well, I mean, Good music. I'm sorry that, the baby seems to want attention instead of having
Yeah, maybe
parents.
the crying added a spooky element, though. That's what I in the background. Like, whoa! But she's good now.
Right. Really scary. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, it is kind of that point in the show where we can have Matt read his piece, if that's okay with you guys. All right, cool.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so I will let you kind of take a breather. Maybe we'll see you later on for Q&A or whatever, wrap up. And yeah, good luck with the kiddo.
Thanks.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I am adding Matt to the stream now.
Evening.
Yes, I can hear you. So, yeah, I don't actually think I have ever said your name out loud, your last name. So,
Billy.
Billy, okay.
British.
So, yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, well, so what have you got for us tonight?
Well, this is a Springfield rifled musket. It was carried during the Civil War by James Trickey, a ancestor of mine, in one of the Maine regiments. And he carried it all through the war, and it survived. And it got me to thinking that war was like nothing America had ever experienced before or since. And there was more death and more horror in little places sometimes than we had ever encountered on Earth. And what might that do? So, heretofore, one short story called The Pit.
Sounds good. All right, I will let you take it away.
Dear Madam, I write concerning your beloved son, Anson. I know you are aware he is considered missing in action. I must sorrowfully tell you that he has gone to his reward, and there is a reason no body was recovered. I can best convey these incredible events as a story. It was dawn on May 13th when I looked over the desolation we called the Bloody Angle. I saw no living trees, no bushes, nothing but dirt and the remnants of men. This had to be the worst fighting of the whole War of the Rebellion. Battalions of men had died here, not for yards, but for inches. After 2 days and nights fighting with muskets, pistols, and bayonets, the silence after the rebels withdrew about 4 this morning was so unnatural I almost welcomed the buzzing of the innumerable flies. When the firing stopped, we simply collapsed and fell asleep in our fighting positions. I had no idea whether my company still existed, nor any of the echelons above it. My aching hands were black with powder burns and covered with scrapes and cuts. Thirst, hunger, and pain mingled in all of us. I saw Anson unhurt and gave thanks. All soldiers pray. But Anson had truly kept his faith intact through this endless hell. As you know from the appreciative letter we sent you at Christmas time, Anson drew lively sketches of men's faces on their letters home and refused payment for it. None but a soldier can tell you how much that particular kindness mattered. Groans and cries still drifted from in front of us, where trenches had been filled with dead and wounded men and breastworks built with bodies in the mud. I meant to help, but I'm ashamed to say I fainted from fatigue. Perhaps an hour later, a sergeant in a recovery detail kicked me awake and set me to work. I begged for some water, and I arose. The smell of that place assaulted the senses. I have butchered cattle, and this was incomparably worse. Many men had bandanas over their faces, stuffed with cloth or grass, but it availed them nothing. It was quiet now, but for the flies, and I distinguished a faint groan from a tiny dry creek bed in a place that had been checked once for the living. The rebels had tried to use this ditch to infiltrate us, but they couldn't because it was simply filled with living and dying men and with rain, bullets, and shrapnel. At the peak of it, not only was the ground filled with death, but seemingly the air itself. We fought like drowning men for every breath. It was quiet now, but and I waved to Anson. He climbed down with me. Amid the bodies, we found that, yes, one man still breathed. He was a Reb, just a boy, clad only in a ragged gray shirt and pants. As he moved his burdened lips, I caught the whispered word, Ma. Anson found a canteen under a body and handed it to me. I wet the southern boy's lips, and he choked out, "Thank you," as he died. I looked up and was surprised to see that Anson had become very nervous, looking all around us. "Ants, what's wrong?" I asked. "Only the dead are left here." "We are not supposed to be here," he said. "Ever been to a sugaring off where they boil the sap till the water's all gone? Only maple syrup left?" "Yeah." "The life's been boiled out of this place. Every last vestige of wholesomeness has been boiled off. There's nothing except death, thousands of deaths, deaths melted and mixed together. Look." He pointed to the ground underneath us. It was turning black. Not the black of soil, nor even the black of blood-soaked soil. It was a black darker than ink, darker than starless night. "It's the black of the pit, Tom, the black of hell," Anson said. "It's the thousands of souls boiled off. There's so much death focused in this one little place, it's drawn the pit up to us. This is no longer part of God's world." All around us, somehow, there were more dead men than before. I saw corpses tumble in from the sides, down into our little hole, until they touched the black, and the black grew wider and, impossibly, blacker. I said, "Ants, we need to get out of here. Go." I took a step up the side of the ditch, and the soil crumbled until I slid back. The risen pit was like a living thing. It was climbing, rising slowly but inexorably up the sides. It clearly did not mean to confine itself to this place. Anson yelled back at me, "Keep going. I can hold it. I can choke it so it doesn't get us all." "You'll die here, Ants," I yelled. "I can do this. I was spared for this. Take care of my ma." Then your son did the bravest thing since the hill of Golgotha. He knelt on the death soil, hands clasped, saying the Lord's Prayer. He looked at me one more time and said, "Tom, get it. Go. Keep everybody away." I shouldn't have left him, or should I? I don't know. I hammered my feet into the bank faster than the sides could fall in. I hurled myself over the lip and rolled away, fighting an inexplicable urge to roll back in. As I staggered away, I looked back to see Anson, still kneeling. He raised his hands. With the red face and impassioned voice of a tent preacher, he shouted, "In God's name, heal!" He rammed his fist into the dirt, and the land itself heaved as the ditch collapsed and buried him, and buried all. This, ma'am, is the Lord's honest truth. We survivors will honor his request and arrange any assistance we may provide for your family. I enclose Anson's Bible and pray it may comfort you. Your obedient servant, Thomas Hicks, Corporal, 14th Indiana, United States Army. Hope you like that.
Yes, it was most excellent. So, yeah. And did you say this was your first time reading on one of our, well, it is your first time reading on this show. Is this your first time reading on an online thingy?
Yeah, it pretty much is. I've certainly watched this show and appreciated everybody. And this is my first time as an author. So thank you, everybody.
Yay! All right. Well, okay. Well, I guess our next guest is an example of radiance and darkness. So I guess Julia has fans. Anyway, thank you, Matt, for joining us as a reader tonight. Hopefully you will be willing to come back.
Anytime.
Most people are willing to do that for some reason. I don't know. I don't think it's to hang out with me, so I don't know what it is. But anyway, I appreciate you. Thanks. And yeah, let's see if I can figure out what I'm doing here so that you're not stuck on here forever. Oh, there you go. All right. So I will check in with you later and have a good time. All right. So the next person we have is an example of radiance and darkness. Okay. Yeah. So several people have asked about her already. So we've got Julia Allen. I will just go ahead and put her on the screen now. So, hi, Julia. A lot of people are looking forward to your reading tonight.
Good evening. I hope everyone is having a lovely night so far.
Yes, I'm having a lovely night. I have a whole new appreciation for prop masters. Just a second. I got some dry ice for this occasion, and the boys keep bringing me gifts from the kitchen now.
That's great.
So yeah, we'll see what turns up next. Anyway, yeah, so do you want to tell me a little bit about what you're reading tonight?
Yes. So this is a murder mystery. It's actually an attempt at a police procedural. I've got about 200 pages into this novel, and it's one of those that I set aside. But it has a ghost in it as co-protagonist with the female cop. So this is the first 10 pages of that. And the name of the book is Nothing Like a Dame.
All right. Awesome. Sounds great. Look forward to hearing it.
December 31st, 1949. She stood at the edge of the shallow ditch, gazing down the mountain to the lights of Aspen twinkling far below. Shivering in the cold, she pictured the scene inside the Red Onion and wished desperately she was there, welcoming in the new decade. In between gusts of wind, she imagined she could hear the clink of glasses, the band blasting out Take the A Train, and the laughter of couples dancing under a blue haze of cigarette smoke. She wondered if Edouard was among them. Once again, she reminded herself why she'd made up her mind to hike through falling snow halfway up Aspen Mountain an hour before midnight on New Year's Eve. She shivered again, this time not from the bitter cold. Protecting her beloved Edouard had driven her here. A blast of icy wind pulled a lock of glossy brunette hair out from under her scarf and froze angry tears at the edge of her lashes. She fumbled for her cigarettes and lighter, dropping one red leather glove as she shielded the flame and drew in a welcome drag. Snow was falling steadily now, blown by the rising wind and silencing the sound of heavy boots crunching up the path next to the old rope ski toe. A click made her turn her head. A shot rang out. The bullet entered the back of her skull and exited through her frontal lobe, the impact pitching her forward into the trench. The cigarette flew from her outstretched hand. She was dead before her body hit the ground. The cigarette glowed and then sputtered out at the ditch's edge. Silence fell over the mountainside. For several minutes, the killer waited there, watching and listening for any sign of life. At last, the footsteps retreated into the swirling snow. A short distance from where the murdered woman had stood, The lights of a bulldozer snapped on. Its engine growled to life, and the powerful gears engaged. The massive yellow shovel pushed half a ton of rock and ice over the ravine, covering her lifeless body. The bulldozer backed up, then repeated the action a second and a third time. The killer cut the engine and shut off the lights. The snow shower was becoming a blizzard. By morning, the tracks of the bulldozer would be covered, along with the rocks and dirt covering the corpse. In the spring, this mountainside would be groomed to make a new ski run. The makeshift grave would lie beneath a motorized chairlift, one of the first of its kind in North America. It would be as if the woman had disappeared from the face of the earth. The killer smiled grimly and turned the dozer toward the valley below, ready to return to the festivities in the Red Onion. This would, indeed, be a happy new year. December 21st, present day. I survived a tour in Afghanistan without a scratch and hit a tree my first day skiing this season. Lying on my back in 2 feet of fresh powder snow, staring up at a cloudless cobalt blue Colorado sky, I wondered how long I'd been here and whether I could stand up. I'd lost my goggles when I collided with the tree. The sun was a fierce presence directly overhead. Must be noon or thereabouts, so I hadn't been out for that long. The glistening, groomed surface of the nearby Niagara Run reflected sunlight, blinding me further. Squinting, I turned my head to seek relief and felt a wave of dizziness. Best to lie still. I wondered how a skiing accident, only 5 days after being hired, would look to my new boss. My boss, Detective Supervisor Ross Randall, who had doubts about whether women should be detectives at all. My boss, who was skiing here today, along with 2 other guys from the SWAT team. True, I'd been slightly out of bounds, but I'd been in perfect control until my skis hit a concealed ridge of ice, probably carved by snowboarders, sending me at a good clip off my line and straight into a tree. These were details unlikely to be included in what would undoubtedly make a great story around the Chaffee County Sheriff's Department. A shadow fell across my face. Great, I thought, an audience. Don't move, a deep masculine voice admonished me. I managed a smile. That was usually my line. He squatted next to me, leaning close, his shadow providing welcome relief from the sun. His face was the deep tan of a true powder hound, and honey blonde hair flowed from his dark goggles onto broad shoulders, wearing the red and black parka of the Aspen Ski Patrol. I wondered what color his eyes were. Like it mattered. He made most Hollywood leading men look ugly. How many fingers am I holding up? A large black gloved hand appeared in front of my face. 3? My throat was dry and the word came out as a croak. Good, he grinned at me, obviously pleased to see I was somewhat with it. What's your name? Sam. Short for Samantha? I started to shake my head no. Quickly, he put a firm but gentle hand on my shoulder to stop me. No sudden movements. We need to keep you still till the sled gets here. Good Lord, I'm going to take the ride down the mountain in the body basket. Please let it not be under the lift line. And if it is, let Ross Crandall not be on that chairlift. It's Samara, I said, forcing volume into my voice. What's that? My name, Samara. I like that. He pushed up his goggles, revealing eyes the color of the Colorado sky. Then he stood. It took him several seconds to rise to his full height. He was at least 6'4". Definitely the Nordic type. At that moment, his ski patrol partner arrived with the medical sled, shoosing to a perfect hockey stop in a spray of snow which tingled all over my face. A few flakes landed on my lips. I licked them thirstily. The partner was a shorter, well-muscled Hispanic dude. He hauled a backboard out of the sled and introduced himself as Luis. He had big, brown eyes like pools of melted chocolate, the 80% cacao kind that gives you a kick while it relaxes you at the same time. Looking into them, I thought of tropical nights. Brad knelt on one side of me as Luis slid the backboard under my body. Hold real still now for me, Sam. We'll have you off this mountain in no time. True to his word, he and Luis lifted me as though my 110 pounds were no more than a feather. I felt the straps buckling over me and tried not to think of some other way I'd seen straps and restraints used. Being a cop can really color your imagination dark. Luis lowered aluminum bars from the back of the sled down over me and stepped into the traces, securing the chest strap. He turned back toward me, smiling. Ready? No, I think I need to check my makeup and hair first, I thought. I grinned back at him inanely. Ready when you are. Brad's shoulder radio crackled to life, and he gave the dispatcher our coordinates. So we must be somewhere off Rock's Run. As my old dad used to say, if you're a good enough skier, there is no out of bounds. The ride down was a blur of bright sunlight, snow spraying up around me, and the disorienting feeling of going downhill on my back at high speed. Luis was an expert skier, of course, like most ski patrollers. I kept my eyes on his scarlet jacket with its big white cross as we veered back onto the run from the treed area where I'd had my close encounter of the pine kind. The lift line was the shortest way down, no doubt about it. Vanity aside, I knew Luis and Brad were doing their best to get me to medical help fast and safely. I knew this, but I still hated the thought of all those spectators. Teenage snowboarders, all giant clothes and bravado. Texan tourists come to ski dressed in blue jeans, planning to try their skills at the stunt ditch, as I'd heard a couple of them refer to the terrain park. And people I knew. That was the worst of all. Dude! A shout rang out far overhead, clear against the motorized purr of the chain lift. Somebody bought it! Looks like a chick, somebody else hollered. Now, how did they figure that out, I mused. I have short hair and most of that's under my ski helmet. Must be my curvy feminine body. Not. Sam? A voice hollered. Is that you? Oh God, no. It's Ross, my team leader. How goddamn lucky can I be? Ross, who doesn't think women belong in police work to begin with. Of course, he's never said anything like that to me directly, but the first time I was invited out for a few beers with him and the other guys, the mood was very restrained. Coming back from a visit to the little policewoman's room, I heard him saying something that had all the others laughing. They quit when they caught sight of me. If I don't answer, maybe he'll figure it's not me, I thought. As we sped away from the lift line, I heard him call, Sam, that is you. I'll meet you at the first aid station. I groaned inwardly. At last, we reached the medical aid hut. Luis and Brad unstrapped me and I sat up. Whoa, not so fast, Luis said, putting a restraining hand on my shoulder. Look, I'm fine, really. I could see little floaters sparkling in the already too bright air around me, but I was motivated. No way was I going to be sitting in that medical hut when my boss made it back down to check on me. Brad's clear blue eyes and Luis's deep brown ones watched me with concern as I put one hand down to help myself up, then got to my feet. There's nothing like a whack on the head at altitude to give you the bends. I drew myself up to my full 5 feet 1 inches, swaying a little in my ski boots. See, I'm okay, I told the 2 ski patrollers brightly. We still need you to come inside with us just for a minute so we can have the doc check you out. Brad's jaw was set. I'd rather go inside and have you personally check me out, I thought. I pulled myself together. This was no time to try to make a move on Brad or Luis or anyone for that matter. He was pretty dreamy in a spicy chocolate mole kind of way. This is not the time or place, I told myself. The 3 of us went into the building, one of them on each side of me, hand under my elbow. They put me in a chair, and a slim blonde woman came out from behind a small metal desk. The ski patrollers gave her their report. She made notes on a form and put me through the usual head injury exam. How many fingers? What day is it? Who is the president? What's this guy's name? And she pointed to Brad. I passed without a mistake. She pulled her stethoscope out of a pocket and checked my vital signs: blood pressure, temperature, pulse, and respiration. Apart from a goose egg on my left temple, where the pine tree had so rudely interrupted my descent, I was in pretty good shape. My helmet had a big crack in it, and my goggles were missing. Minor issues. What do you say, Doc? Brad asked the cute blonde. His gaze lingered on her backside. She gave him a winning smile. Looks like she's okay to go, as long as she's not driving. The look that passed between the two of them told me all I needed to know about Brad and Dr. Barbie. No doubt they'd be meeting later for drinks in the Hotel Jerome, or perhaps somewhere smaller, darker, and more intimate. Louise spoke. Sam, did you drive up here with a friend? I hadn't. I'd come up to Aspen on a bus, so I could read and listen to my iPod all the way from Colorado Springs. It had been a relaxing trip. Somehow, I doubted the good doctor would release me to ride back alone on the bus. Shit fire. Not only am I going to have to wait in this hut with the lovebirds, but I'm going to have to ride home in my boss's Jeep, listening to his country music all the way back to Colorado Springs. I gave Luis a cheery grin. I sure did. I lied. Time passed slowly. I stared out the window at the people who'd had the good sense not to ski into trees, zipping down the slopes, having a great time. Soon enough, Ross would be here. Brad stood next to Dr. Barbie, seemingly reading the paperwork she was filling out. The air was thick with pheromones. The door of the hut burst open. Russ stood framed in the doorway, all rugged and windblown, his face flushed from his fast descent. He was a snowboarder, and I felt guilty from pulling him away from shredding the gnar, as he called it. Sam, are you okay? She's fine. We'd like her to follow up with her regular doctor once she gets home, and no driving for 24 hours. Why are they talking about me in the third person? I groused silently. Probably because I'm little. Story of my life. No, sister. It's because you hide your light under a bushel. Maybe if you tried to dress a little more like a lady. The strange voice came out of nowhere. What? No one in here said that, and I didn't think it. No, you didn't. I did. I looked around the hut. Nobody here but Ross, looking all manly and concerned, and Brad drooling over the blonde doctor. Am I going crazy or what? Or what? Said the sweet voice. Far off, somewhere inside my head, I heard the tinkle of feminine laughter. Now I'm starting to think it's a good thing I'm not driving. Maybe I have a concussion. This dump is for the birds. Why don't you get Handsome there to drive us home? Make nice and let's go. Us? I asked the disembodied voice. More laughter inside my head. As I saw it, I had only two choices. Either I could tell the assembled company I was hearing voices, or a voice, as it happened, or I could smile at Ross, Brad, and Dr. Barbie and let Ross drive me home. It was no choice at all, really. Ross had me by the arm. The other two wished us a safe trip home. Outside the hut, Luis showed Ross where my skis and remaining pole were propped up. Ross's board was already strapped to his back, so he picked up my things with his free arm and walked me confidently over the bunny hill to the parking lot. Ross's Jeep smelled of old leather and masculine sweat. He probably kept his gym bag in the back and washed his workout clothes once a week, whether they needed it or not. He helped me climb in. I gritted my teeth. Now, was that so terrible, having a handsome gentleman open a door for you and hand you into your seat? Yes, damn it. Now I was answering the voice back. I really was losing touch with reality, but I was mad. I'm small and I'm female, and I have to stand up with him in the line of fire. Ah, oui. Her voice was low and husky, like a pack-a-day smoker who gargled with honey. I would love to be in intimate danger with that gent. Imminent danger, don't you mean? Who on earth are you? That silvery laugh tinkled off in the distance inside my head again. You have hit the nail on the head, child. I am not on Earth. Not really. Ross's voice momentarily stopped me from further interrogating the voice in my head. Just relax, Sam, and leave the driving to me. Without waiting for a response, he put the Jeep in gear and backed smoothly out of the lower parking lot. He stopped in the middle of the frontage road and deftly pulled his iPod from an inner pocket of his parka. He clipped it into the car's stereo system and scrolled quickly through the device. Driver picks the music. He grinned widely as the strains of David Allan Coe singing You Never Even Called Me by My Name filled the Jeep. It was going to be a long drive home. I closed my eyes, feigning sleep, so I wouldn't have to converse with Ross. Maybe in a little while, I'd fish out my own iPod and discreetly put my headphones in. Meanwhile, I'd follow my breathing, Zen style, and tune out the twangy music. It took only a few breaths for me to find inner silence. That was when her voice started up again. Well, ain't you curious? You're supposed to be a lady cop. The voice had a pouting quality to it. Who are you? I thought back. My name is Madeline LaRue, but you can call me Maddie. From your accent, you sound French. No, cher, I'm Cajun, a gal from the bayou stranded in this cold place in this modern time. Stranded? Modern time? What the hell do you mean? Ooh, listen at you. I died in 1949, or 1950, I guess, so this time ain't mine at all. I was utterly dumbfounded, then figured, no question about it, I have a concussion. So I'm hearing a voice that isn't here, the voice of a dead person. Just go with it for now. If I play along with this voice, maybe it'll get bored and go away. Slowly and calmly, I answered her. So that makes you what? A ghost? I'm dead and I'm in your head. Her voice was sing-song, playful, and accented. Uh-huh. And you're in my head because? 60 years I wait for the right person. Not many folks ski that place. Had to be a woman. Eh bien, Maddie could never be inside a man's head. Okay, so out of all the women who've skied on that hill since 1950, you chose me? How'd I get so damn lucky? She sounded exasperated. I needed a police, a cop. I didn't like the sound of this one bit, but I asked anyway. For what? Some other ghost disturbing the peace in Ghostville? There was a pause, a long one. I took a deep breath, then another. Had I said the magic words to get the hitchhiker out of my brain? Then the voice spoke again, quietly and with complete conviction. What I want is justice. I want you to find out who murdered me.
So I took it that is the end of that. All right. Well, sounds awesome, Julia. So let's see. Who do we have next? Thank you so much for reading for us tonight. So how did that go for you?
It was great. I really enjoyed it.
That's good. Yes. Well, I enjoyed it too, as always, sexy, mysterious, full of, Southern influences. It's my kind of thing.
I like that stuff too.
All right. Well, have a good evening. Probably chat with you in a bit. And let's see. Okay. Yes. We've got everybody who's very happy about this, which is awesome. All right. So next up, we have Rebecca Hodgkins, who is my fellow favorite short person. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm good. I still haven't gotten taller, though.
Me neither, but I haven't shrunk. How about you?
Yeah, it seems to be about the same. Actually, I'm growing. It's just not in the directions that people typically want to be growing at. But that's COVID for all of us.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one of the symptoms of COVID, I've heard. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be living pandemic life if that's happening to you.
Right.
All right. So what have you got for us tonight?
Okay, tonight I have two poems. The first one is for the kitties, And the second one is not for the kiddies. It's for some of us who are a little bit older. So first one is called At Halloween.
Nice.
Even though this isn't a Halloween show, we'll just pretend that it is for
Not the Halloween show. But we know it is the Halloween show. I mean, I've got the pumpkin, t-shirt. I mean, obviously it's the Halloween show, but yeah.
There you go. I love
Anyway.
that shirt.
I'll let you take it away.
All right. Okay. At Halloween. At Halloween, we seek to appease you, our beloved dead, greatly feared, with black chocolate skulls, eyes filled with gray salt that we lick off our fingers. We even send our children out into the night. We hide their faces, tell them, be good now, ring, beg, run. And we forget that you, beloved dead, most feared loves, may shake the trees over their laughing heads, cloud the moon, slick the streets, because you too are hungry, begging to be remembered, seen, touched, and comforted. Who can blame you for your anger then, shaking the house when the porch lights go dark, leaving you and the bright, empty wrappers to blow lonely down the cold street? Beloved dead, greatly feared, tricking us into thinking that you return for a single night and you evaporate with the sunlit frost. All right. Poem number 2. This one is called Carnivore. It's originally was published in a magazine called Nightblade, and it's a bit of a play on words. Maybe you'll get it. Carnivore. Step right up. Step this way. You've come to see the show. I know from the look in your eye, you'd deny coming to see the 7 virgins and the mule, wouldn't you? But I've a thing for you. Yes, you with the discriminating eye. Hey, stop this way. For you, we have a beauty untamed, unnamed, unframed, just behind the curtain. Call her anything you like. She'll take no notice, enchanted as she is. Oh, yes, my friend, engaged on stage. Come on, step in, come on, make room. Prepare to swoon at the sight of one woman, one desire fulfilled, spilled, thrilling. There, she stands. She leans forward, reaches out, and claims your heart, your dreams. She doesn't even know we're here. The air is sweet amidst the sawdust as she takes it in her 2 hands. Unshaved, the thick fuzz like fur stirs her to part her lips and savor not the flavor, not yet, but the perfume, the essence. Pressing her open mouth to the skin, you can imagine how her tongue must be flat against the flesh. For $1 more, I'll let you see. Now quiet. She's about to bite. And you'll want to hear clearly the tear of a skin under her teeth as they sink into the rich flesh. Watch the juice sluice between her fingers and thumb, right on down her arm. Charmed by her harming, aren't we? Lifting heavenward that same arm to lick the nectar, she directs her mouth back to the bowl from her bite and drinks the juice that pools. As you fools watch from your stools, step right up. All right, that's it.
Wow, that second one was definitely not for the kiddo.
Not for the kids.
But yes, I do love the imagery. So yes, thank you for the very Halloweeny poems, Rebecca.
You're welcome. Fun as always.
All right. And so now we have Aaron Michael Ritchey, who, as I've said before, is a very handsome man, but, he claims he's having some lighting issues. So let's see. Oh, Aaron, the doors to the closet are sensibly shut now.
I know, because monsters come out of open closets, but if you keep the closet shut, then you're good. So I close the closet doors.
That's good. That's an important tip.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's important to close those. Have doors on the closets. I'm actually missing doors on several of the closets in the house I just moved into. So you can only imagine the stuff that's roaming around in here. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madness every night. So
I'm ready.
Anyway.
I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Let you go. Okay. You go with your bad self.
Okay, we ready? Okay. So I'm Aaron Michael Ritchey. I've written a bunch of books. I love writing horror. So I wrote a book called The Cunning Man with DJ Butler about a Mormon sorcerer in investigating paranormal crimes in Dust Bowl, Utah. But when I got invited to do this, I got very excited because there's a story I wrote that's super gory, and I was like, oh, I want to read this story. It's in the Necro Omnomnomicon, which is edited by Jason Diaz. He is a Colorado Springs genius, and it was an anthology that was basically, you combined cooking with Cthulhu. And back in 2017, I visited Auschwitz and Birkenau, and I wanted to write a story where Nazis get their due, because hate Nazis. So this story, I'm going to start kind of halfway through, so we're just going to read the end. And it's about Heinrich Grieb, who is a fat German in Poland working at the camp. And they're working at the crematorium too, and everything goes quiet. So they go into there was three parts. There was the disrobing room, then the shower where everyone was killed, and then there was a corridor that connected it to the ovens where the bodies were burned. And actually the choking point was getting rid of the bodies. You can only burn so much, which is terrible. But so he goes into the ovens, and some spooky stuff's happened, and he tries to get out, the door's closed, and this is where we're going to start. So Yost is the other guard, and then Junst is the prisoner who was working, because they used prison labor to do the work, which is just unimaginably terrible. So we're going to start there. Okay. But the door to the outside was stuck closed. It shouldn't be. Grieb shouldered into the door and kept himself from shrieking because he was a full member of the Vossen SS. He wouldn't succumb to his own panic. The schnitzel in his stomach soured. He tasted the bile, his throat constricted, but he swallowed it down. No, he would fight. He would get out of the building. He would bring the wrath of God down upon these animals in the games they were playing. Despite his determination to be brave, he yelped when he turned. Standing by the furnace was Junts, a bald, hollow-eyed thing with thick lips and a small pointed nose. He couldn't weigh much more than 45 kilos. Even the smallest of the striped uniforms swamped his slight frame. Finally, Grieb had an enemy. He stomped over and seized the prisoner. You said that word. You're behind this. The prisoner blinked. Behind what there, Grieb? The bodies. I'm to burn the bodies. But the guards, the workers here, they all went into the showers and never came back. Something is in there. Grieb shook the insipid creature. What is in there, and why can't I open the door? I don't know, Herr Grieb, the animal said. The eyes, usually so obsequious, had a strange light glowing there. In his madness, Junts knew he was going to be shot, and he didn't care. Where were you before? Grieb asked. I was hiding, Junts said. I was afraid. The man didn't look afraid. He looked either ready to die or ready to bite. Grieb had seen the look before. Junts might have survived the first month, but it seemed as if he wouldn't survive the second. Grieb went to turn on the lights. Several flicks of the switch brought him nothing. He tried the alarm switch to trigger the emergency klaxons, but it too was dead. No help would be coming. His only light was the crimson glow of the coals in the oven. Grieb grit his teeth. He used his rage to cover his panic. He waved his machine gun at Yuntz. Walk, prisoner, to the showers. You will go first. Yuntz did as he was told. The man wasn't ready to die just yet. Good. If something was in the showers, it would take the prisoner first, and then Grebe could shoot. It? Him? Them? What could be in there? Yuntz maneuvered around the carts, and the darkness swallowed him. His footsteps echoed off the concrete floors, walls, ceiling, until they stopped and silence swallowed up all noise. Lights snapped, illuminating the corridor, the carts, the bodies. Yuntz was gone. What trick was this? Prickles of fear lifted the hair on his arms. Yuntz had been there, but now he was gone, and there had been no sound of the door opening and closing. Nonsense, Grebe shouted. He merely hadn't heard it. He found himself running down the passageway, and he burst through the door and into the showers. Dim, flickering lights showed the empty showers, empty of the females and their whelps, empty except for the stains of body fluids and excrement streaking the concrete, empty except for 3 cans of Zyklon B, punctured but not spewing poisonous gas, empty except for Yuntz. The pathetic animal stood in his filthy stripes in the middle of the room. The stink of the smears on the floor mangled the soothing smell of almonds. The Zyklon B, it smelled like the marzipan Grebe's grandmother had used to make little Tannenbaume at Christmas time. Herr Grebe, Yuntz whispered, I tried the door to the disrobing room, but it is locked. It seems we must wait to be rescued. Grebe marched up to the animal and drove the butt of his rifle into the wretch. Yuntz fell to his knees. Grebe continued to the other side of the room to try the door for himself. Locked. Nachbauer! Jost! Grebe roared so he wouldn't whimper. Another long silence confirmed Grebe had no choice but to wait, which meant the end of Yuntz. Grebe wasn't about to let him live. He seemed responsible. Grebe turned and aimed his rifle at the animal, who regained his feet. Yuntz, otherwise known as 65113, didn't flinch. Instead, he whispered, The book was called Unersprachlichen Kulten. That caught Grebe off guard. What book? My grandfather wrote the book, Yuntz whispered. No, he didn't write it, but compiled the information. He'd wanted me to continue his work. I couldn't until now, until I found your kind of diabolical ignorance. To think, I thought I had seen the true face of evil. I was naive. Enough! Grebe squeezed the trigger and the lights flickered off. His bullets whined off concrete, ricocheted. One snipped his ear while others bounced through the concrete room. Flashes of light from the muzzle showed him the impossible. Yuntz wasn't there. The lights quivered on. Grebe wasn't alone. No, impossible. The showers had been empty. No, he couldn't believe his eyes. And yet, Grebe found himself standing among the bodies of the females and their spawn, fouling the floor, naked and dead. Mouths twisted in death screams. The eyes of dead children stared at him in mute accusation. He shut his own eyes. The showers had been empty. How could he now stand among the dead with the oppressive smell of marzipan suffocating him? When the glow through his eyelids ceased, he opened them to darkness, absolute darkness. He gingerly towed at the air in front of him, thinking he'd feel dead flesh. He'd have to walk across the bodies. He'd trip. He'd feel their dead, cold skin. It would be a nightmare. What if one of the dead grabbed him? His stomach boiled for a moment. He thought he would vomit. Instead, his boot came down on bare concrete. The bodies were gone. He must have managed them, or was that even possible? Yutz's voice hissed in the ink. You do not believe it, but we are the same genus, Herr Grebe. Jewish people, the Romani, Catholics, homosexuals, the mentally disabled, we are Homo sapiens, or wise man, which is ironic, given that we slaughter one another with such diabolical ignorance. They, the old ones, the eldritch abominations that my grandfather studied, are not of our species. They are outside of this world, and they hunger with a desire impressive by its purity. Your hunger and the hunger of the Reich is far less innocent. The door to the oven room slammed shut and locked with a metallic click. The scent of almonds abated, leaving the stink of the offal smeared on the concrete. Greaves' training took over. He ejected his empty clip and slammed in a new one. Working the action, he then emptied his machine gun into the dead space of the showers where his rounds whined and ricocheted. One struck him in the leg in a sharp stab of pain. He reloaded even as he limped toward the passageway which led to the oven room. Maybe it wouldn't be locked. He had to try. There would be light in the oven room, the hellish glow of the furnaces, and it would help him find Yutz and put an end to him. Greeb put out a hand in the darkness. How his eyes strained to see. Something cold touched his hand, so cold, so soft, yet so strong, like iron coated in dead velvety flesh, like the skin of a little girl long dead and stuffed with steel. They hunger, Yutz in his damnable whisper, but they do not want cooked meat. They ignored the bodies in the oven, but then there was little meat clinging to the bones. But you are raw and you are marbled, and they will delight in your fat. Greeb tried to fire another round, but another snake of soft cold struck his rifle away. Greeb punched whatever might be grabbing him. Yutz? It had to be the prisoner, but no, the thing wasn't shaped right. Flabby, squat, motionless, and yet moving. Greeb's knuckles sank into frozen chub for just an instant, and then the monstrosity, lost in the darkness, shifted, and teeth ripped into Greeb's wrist. There was no pain, at first. It engulfed his arm and pulled, sucked his skin, sucked his blood, sucked the meat off his right hand. His fingers, it was eating him, sucking his flesh from his bones like a calf might suckle at his mother's teat. The agony was glass in Greeb's flesh. It hurt. God, it hurt, and he needed to get away, but if he pulled, it would hurt even more. Yet he had no choice but to wrench his wounded, screaming limb from the meat grinder maw. His arm came loose. He tripped backwards and fell. The lights buzzed on, and he saw his left hand still intact, but his right hand was a skeletal paw, and the bones, drenched in his blood, bent at the joint, now visible. Pale pink tentacles circled around his biceps, both arms. Another tentacle prodded his back fat as if he were a pig on the farm, ready for slaughter. Yutz whispered weakly, "Many worlds in the universe, Herr Greeb. Many doorways between the worlds in time and in space. Many ways to save at least some of us. And it was eager for you. It wanted your fat and muscle because it had watched you eating from the outside of all worlds, in the frozen nightmare of the between." Greeb gazed at his own bone and cartilage. Shuffling feet made him glance up. Across the room, Yutz escorted the naked women and children out of the doors of the shower into the changing room. They were emaciated and weak, but they were grabbing clothes, hurrying, because they hadn't been gassed. And beyond was the January sunlight of the outside world. What had Yutz said? Doorways? Many doorways between the worlds in time and in space? The showers were empty. Then it was filled with the dead, and now the living were escaping outside. The empty guard tower, where he had been warming last night's schnitzel, wouldn't stop the women and children from fleeing to safety. If they had more meat on their bones, would the monstrosity have allowed them to run away uneaten? When the last of the half-starved prisoner had left, Yutz turned and limped back into the shower. His eyes seemed huge on his thin face. Greeb wanted to kill him, but the flabby, cold, baby-skin tentacles held him back, and the mouth, he could hear the mouth slurping up the flesh it had sucked from his bones. Yutz stood over Greeb and spoke in a weary voice. "I wasn't sent to the camps because I was Jewish, Romani, Catholic, or homosexual. I was sent to the camps, me a German citizen, because your Führer feared me. He should fear me, for I know things he can never know. The Third Reich want the world, and the old ones want the same. I let 4 of their servants in, only 4, only servants. It was all I could do lest I lose all of my sanity. If I had more strength, I would have flung the gates wide and let them all in. Serving their appetites, filling their gullets would be far better than the genocide of your diabolical ignorance." The third pale tentacle, the color of a newborn baby's waving arm, seized the wrist of Greeb's skeletal hand and sent him sprawling onto his face. Greeb wanted to scream, wanted to let loose a lungful of horror, but all he could manage was a grunt until he was weeping. Globs of his spit fell to the shit-stained cement, and still Yutz whispered on above him. The other crematoriums have their own demons, and you won't stop them. In time, you will have to blow them up or lose your armies to them. Another frozen tentacle seized his leg. Another poked his belly as if he wanted to watch it wiggle. That's my belly bacon, Greeb's mind screamed. It's feeling for my bacon. No, Greeb sobbed. Please, it will eat me. Please, Yutz. You said we were both of the same species. Please help me, please. No, I don't think so, Yutz replied. But I heard you before, Herr Grub, talking with Jost. And while no doubt your wife's Käse Spätzle is excellent, no one can touch my grandmother's cheesy dumplings. Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Grub. I believe you will make an excellent appetizer. When others of the SS come, they will be the main course. Yutz turned and left, gripping a leather book. Had he been carry the book the entire time? Grebe didn't know, and his shrieking mind wouldn't let him think. One thing, however, was very clear. If the old ones came in force, there would be a culling, but it wouldn't just be the Jew, the Gypsy, the Catholics, or the queer. It would be the entire species of Homo sapiens. The thing, the servant of the old ones, engulfed Grebe's leg in the sucking maw of steel-like teeth and slurped his boot, his pants, his flesh from his calf and foot. Grebe howled in pain and remembered gnawing on chicken bones at a meal with his family on Sunday afternoons in his little village outside of Munich. But the chicken had been cooked. The old ones and their servants liked their meat marbled and raw. Grebe's screams echoed off the concrete for a long time. There was a fair amount of distance between a man's feet and his throat. And then in the book, I have the recipe for Frau Friedrich Wilhelm von Juntz's Käsespätzle. And Käsespätzle, super delicious. So that's my story. Oh my God, that was so much fun. It's so great. I love it. Monsters eating Nazis.
Yeah, and all the fun is in here. I don't even know if we can still get this on Amazon, whatever.
It's on Amazon.
It's still on Amazon? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so yeah, this one's edited by Jay Diaz, and I was there at the release party. I got it signed by some people. I don't think you signed mine, Aaron.
I don't think I was there.
Oh, that was why. I thought maybe you just like hated me or something. Okay, so
no, Amy Armstrong, you're organizing this amazing story time where I get to read about
Nazis being eaten.
About Nazis being eaten by demons summoned by German sorcerers.
I'm into it though, I'm fulfilling my life purpose. So
this is super amounts of fun. And everyone's so good. And I was like, wow, this is really good. So
well, thank you so much. And thank you for being here and for reading the story. And yes, the recipe actually looks delicious. Just probably
it's good.
So next up we have Tom. So I will let you go for a little while, Aaron, not bile. No,
bile, lots of bile.
Oh, that was awful, wasn't it? Yes, I know. I went there. All right. So now we have Tom.
Hello.
Hi, and you've floofed your hair.
Yes, I floofed it appropriately for Halloween. I don't know. Doesn't it look spooky?
It does look spooky. Yeah, I had very spooky hair for a while, and I finally trimmed it, but it's still gross because, COVID and really why shower regularly? I mean, people who really love me can deal with my smell. It's fine. So I just don't bother with that. So it's up. And it's so glamorous. But anyway, what have you got for us tonight?
I have a story that I wrote special for this. So hopefully it might tend a little longer, maybe more than 20, like 25 minutes. So I'll try and go a little faster because I know we're all hungry after that last.
I think it depends on what kind of person you are.
I know. That was great though. I was loving it.
But anyway, yes,
right.
I will just I will give you the floor before I make another joke about internal organs. And yeah. Okay.
Okay, the story I'm going to read is called The Human Refrigerator, and it's inspired by a story by the writer Edogawa Rampo, a Japanese writer who wrote a story called The Human Chair. It was early Saturday morning, the morning of her young daughter's 5th birthday party, and Francine felt a little on edge. This was Charlotte's first big party, and she and her husband Jim had put a lot of effort into organizing it. As a veteran video game designer, she was used to designing experiences for people, for kids even. But as the morning sun crept up over the horizon, through the Venetian blinds in her second-floor home office, she felt a certain tension that every parent's doomed to cycle through as their first child goes through the stages of life. It's anxiety. It was the same feeling she remembers when her first game was released all those years ago, and the reviews started coming in. And it was there at the first conventions she attended, the first presentation she gave to the industry, all events that seemed so far in the past to her that she'd almost forgotten how nervous she'd been for them. After all, she knew what kids liked to play, but when it came to throwing a real in-person birthday party, that was another matter. Jim had left the house before the sun came up, so he could time his lunch break with Charlotte waking up and opening her presents. Francine ran her pen down the to-do list she'd scribbled out in her notebook. RSVPs, party favors, decorations, music, classic party games, pin the tail on the donkey. The only thing left was the ice cream cake, which Jim would pick up on his way home from work. She was set. Still, sitting still was never her strong suit. In her world, there was always something to do. She pushed the Charlotte party to-do list aside and turned to her work to-do list. Yes, she thought, job applications. There was always more job applications to process. Whenever a game designer position opened, Francine's company was constantly inundated with application after application. Resumes, cover letters, portfolios. Francine's own struggle to be recognized as a woman in the industry primed her to take a particularly critical eye to these packages. What's passion when it's all words? You have to work really hard to create something good people want to play. This industry was not forgiving. Show me you speak the language of games. That's what she always said. Turning to her laptop, she navigated to the job aggregator tool. To her surprise, there was only one game designer application unreviewed. Not wanting to take to look a gift horse in the mouth, she opened the application materials and decided to start with the cover letter. The first odd thing about the file was the length. The scroll bar on the side of the screen shrunk to a few inches. The letter was longer than a page. Strange, too, was the absence of any heading. At the very top were the words, "Dear Madam." At first propelled by the strangeness, she began to scan through the first few lines, then a few more. The letter went on, and soon a grotesque curiosity swelled inside her, such that her eyes were glued to the screen, hungry to devour the strange tale unfolding in front of her. She couldn't help herself. She felt possessed, as if her breath hung on each of the pixels stretching across the screen. Dear Madam, I hope you'll forgive my indulging a bit of creative license with the usual cover letter ceremonies. While I do respect the process and highly value an even playing field, there are certain boundaries that are simply made to be broken. And as you'll come to know well after reading this letter, when pressed up against specific types of boundaries, I suffer from a certain type of obsession that simply needs to upend them with pathological exactness. I find it difficult to even begin writing these words. The thought of you actually reading them already sends shivers throughout my body. I know you must know it. You have no shortage of quite loyal admirers out there on the internet. While I count myself among them, I should like to be recognized apart from the others. While they may have followed your journey for longer, I think I may have the most personal connection with you among those faceless yes-men. Goodness sakes. Forgive my rambling. I'm all too aware that someone like me doesn't get to communicate with someone like you without some sort of pretense. You made it, after all. You've proven yourself. I don't have anything at all to show for my own existence. All I've done is hide and watch and hide, continue to wait for something that will spring me from my hole, something I couldn't yet imagine, something that was really worth it, that would really drive me. Well, something did. And now I felt there was no recourse but for me to put this all down in words. I simply must tell this story. And you see, you're the only person who can appreciate this, which is why I needed to write this cover letter to you. It would be more accurate not to call this a cover letter, but instead to call it a confession. It's to you and only for you. Before I continue any further, there's something I need you to keep in mind as you read this cover letter. I'm an absolute nobody. Now, I'm even lower than a nobody. I'm not ashamed to admit this. I simply must make it abundantly clear that my presence as a digital person in this day and age is equivalent to that of a horrific leper cast aside to the outskirts of Jerusalem in the Old Testament. That is, ugly, destitute, not so much worth even a charitable glance to justify my humanity. I don't have any accounts. I have no platform. I have no profiles. I have no portfolios. You won't find me at the center of any online communities or contributing quips in the replies of any industry influencers' posts. On top of that, I'm conventionally ugly. My face is what the AI algorithms are trying to filter out of query results. Nobody likes to see a face like mine, and nothing else about it really matters. While if I'd been born a single decade earlier, I may have gotten away with living a somewhat normal life behind the guise of a name alone, that became impossible for me before I even had the chance to decide. Even so, a single picture of me will not be found via any reverse image searching, as any shred of information about myself could only serve to elicit much deserved disgust. It'd be more accurate to say that I don't exist, and I would welcome that reality were it easily made so, and I try. Alas, it is the same perverse affliction coloring the deformed monster I am, which also sustains my pitiful existence and curiosity for more. I'm but a mealworm under your feet, gasping for air and cursing it for its panacean abilities. As I relay my story to you, please don't forget these facts, for I know this digital leprosy of mine to be an irreversible truth. It's paramount you understand this if we ever meet, so that your shock at my crude, degenerative attempts at communication doesn't cut short our interaction. Please remember, it's the thought that counts. Let me begin by citing one of your convention videos from GDC, wherein you speak about the importance of learning what initially drives a creative person into their field. Not only what logical problems were they trying to solve, but what deeper problem are they teasing out? At present, I'm a 30-year-old man who's nothing more than a lowly appliance sales and repair specialist. That's what you'll see on my name tag at work, right underneath my incredibly commonplace name. My credentials consist of a decade and a half of fear and self-doubt powered by unrealistic expectations of perfectionism bordering on OCD. I've talked to shrinks, I've gotten pills, but none of them ever really changed much of anything. They kind of created a paper-thin ghost version of myself, and that wasn't the real me. But who was the real me then? Simply a person who never wanted to fail, but didn't know how to succeed. So that's what separates people like you from people like me. It's like a giant membrane that would never allow us to touch, like world phasing in an online game. You in your world and I in mine, going about our business with our own set of rules, our own game. This is what I didn't understand when I was younger, but I've come to now understand it. I started as a geeky, lonely middle school student learning to code in order to find somewhere safer than the real world to stretch my limbs. Being too ugly to speak to any girl at all, I simply stalked them and used their actions as data to program simulations. Soon I discovered an intense fascination, not with how the simulated versions of girls might act toward me, but how the simulations acted without prompting. I grew preoccupied with just seeing what the simulation did on its own. It was like watching an ant colony where every ant knew what every other ant was doing, and they understood the concept that they were a hive. This kept my attention for some time, but I soon ran out of data, and I wasn't yet brash enough to impede physically on these girls' lives in order to learn, yet. Lucky for me, the school had my answer in the form of CC security cameras. It wasn't hard to install my own workaround in the system that allowed me to tap into the feeds and keep watch all the time, 24/7. But why stop there, I thought. These people were just like simulations. They were just data that I could better simulate. So I had absolutely no moral qualms using various means to hack their social media accounts, phone cameras, microphones, laptops. I wrote software that kept the cameras on and recorded movement. I wrote software that listened for audio, that ran it against an algorithm that could notify me if anything juicy could be recognized in it. This went on for some time, but unfortunately for me, all good things come to an end. I graduated from high school with no college prospects, and suddenly all my living data was gone, and I was alone and pitiful again. I knew by this time I was obsessed. I can see plainly now that I simply wanted to make my digital and moral presence on this earth reflect my physical appearance. That is horrifyingly objectionable. And I couldn't stop. I had to get all the answers. I had to fill in all the blanks. But I didn't have some family bankroll to fall back on. I had no family, basically. My obsession wasn't cheap, and now that I didn't have access to the school's resources, I needed to think of something else. So after floundering around in retail and food service, I eventually found in my current appliance sales and repair job, which would provide the means to reignite and grow this obscene, voyeuristic tendency of mine. I'm loath to include such a shameful admission as this, but in all honesty, I discovered an exuberant joy in actually feeling I knew something inside out, even something as stupid and mundane as the latest consumer appliances. How pitiful to feel pride for such an inconsequential thing. I found myself engaged in a make-believe reality where all my coworkers and all of my customers were secretly testing me and my knowledge, were trying to finally get me to slip up and make a mistake, to find a gap in what I knew. I was surrounded by saboteurs, vying for the position of top appliance sales associate. This is a world where my coworkers pretended to be burnouts without GDDs, or women in their 30s still waiting to marry a rich guy. And after performing their act around me, they'd steal away to their homes at night to read through the manuals of the next line of garbage disposal units to get a jump on me. This was the first time I didn't wait for something interesting to happen. The first time I wasn't just watching the simulation. It felt good to be an expert, to be in control, to know what was going on. Even to know what was going to happen, even if it was knowing which ice maker made better crushed ice versus cubed ice. But once I left work and was back at home, I became the miserable creature I was always used to. Alone, poor, unglamorous. This couldn't be all there was. If this is what being a normal human being was like, I wasn't sure I could do it. Why was it so hard for me? It seemed so much easier for my coworkers, for these customers coming into the store with their kids and their spouses, blowing hundreds of dollars on an appliance, when my salary only afforded me to eat out once a week, if that. Outside of the sales floor, I was a wretch again. It just wasn't fair. So it made a lot of sense to me what I did next. I was used to invading people's lives without their knowing. I realized I had a plethora of sensitive data again: customer credit cards, home addresses, family schedules for deliveries. It would be a cinch to use this information to allow myself a little financial gain, however roguish it was. I get control of their home network, their home security system. Why, it's just like the old school security system. I could sit and watch them, and when the coast was clear, simply let myself into their houses, take a few items, and let myself out. No one the wiser. It was almost disheartening how easy this was. Most of my victims didn't even realize I had ever stolen anything from them. I would take small things, of course, like a single gold necklace or a few bills out of a stash, long forgotten Blu-rays or video games that could go for $20 a pop at a pawn shop. If these rich folks ever did figure out something was gone, they always assumed they just lost it. After all, I made sure there was no evidence of my entry in their security footage, and they took that footage as God's own truth, as if it couldn't be doctored. But it wasn't long before I became restless again. My coworkers, my manager, even the dumb people buying these stupid appliances, I wasn't like them. Maybe I wasn't like you, madam, but I certainly wasn't like them. Then what was I? I never felt like I could do anything except watch and wait and be prepared to answer specific technical questions while making someone else feel smart and in control. It wasn't long before anger crept back in where exhausted complacency had taken hold. And in that anger at the stupidity of my life's travails, I bore myself fully to the whims of fate. I made myself vulnerable and naked. And the fates delivered upon me one day 4 months ago in March, a family. A young family, a father, a mother, a daughter, parents in their 30s, the daughter no more than 4 years old. When this family appeared in our artificially lit show floor, it was as if Zeus and Hera themselves had descended upon the Greeks to curry favor in the face of their obvious dominance. I fell in love with each of them almost instantly. The father, tall, handsome, caring, meticulous. The mother, passionate, enthusiastic, charming in a somewhat desperate way. The daughter, bright-eyed, brimming with dreams and creativity. I so wished I could be a part of their world. As I ran through my regular spiel, I kept imagining going home with them, eating dinner with them, laughing with them at how absurd our days were. And it was after they made their purchase from me that I discovered it. My ticket in, my ladder up to the next intellectual cast. You see, they purchased a smart refrigerator, one with the capability to connect to a home network. A consumer may desire this functionality as a means to see via camera inside the fridge what food's in there from anywhere else, provided they had a smartphone. It would report on temperature levels and could even detect air density in the fridge to warn against developing odors. It could remind you to clean it, and it could report problems to you and to the manufacturer itself. In short, this smart fridge did what you needed and didn't ask anything of you for it. Why? It was the most beautiful offering we had, and the one piece of equipment I truly felt at home with. I caught myself as I was ringing this family up, nearly hyperventilating at my envy of this fridge. It would get to be part of their family, a part of their world. It would get to serve them and be a scaffolding on which they could stand more sturdy during their everyday lives in the upper echelons. That's what I wanted. That's all I ever wanted. I knew I could never be Michelangelo, but why couldn't I be the scaffolding he laid down on to paint the Sistine Chapel? Why could I never find someone and make myself that for them? I knew now. It's because I was waiting for this family, and here they were, and here was my opportunity, and I would take it. The fridge was my way in. Before it was delivered to them, I made some adjustments in the wiring. I altered some of the software security protocols in a way that would allow me and only me to access them. Once it was there in their house, so was I. When they connected the fridge to their home network, they connected me. And once I was connected, I could see everything about them. And best of all, I could watch them. No longer would the end of my sales shift signal the end of my existence meaning anything. No. Now, every moment outside of my job, I spent watching the family. I purchased the best equipment for my home, multiple displays, better audio, all so I could watch from all the cameras throughout their house, listen through all their microphones, and be with them. And that's what I did. At first, it was nothing more than the hours upon hours of silent watching, just like my days back in high school. There were so many high-tech gadgets in the house, I felt I almost had free reign. I had rediscovered my ant colony, and I wouldn't let them go this time. My admiration for this beautiful American family only grew after watching them. They worked hard, they allowed themselves leisure time, they were good people, people that were making the world a better place. Both of the parents worked, but they made sure to make time for their daughter, and she wasn't a brat about it at all. I made sure to hack into the networks, both parents' works, and the family homes of the daughter's closest friends, just so I could keep a watch over them when they were outside the house too. I maintained this balance for a month and a half before my boss at my job noticed my poor performance. They told me to take a sabbatical, and I accepted with no intention of ever returning. That job didn't matter anymore. It had been a stepping stone, and now I had found the thing that would truly allow me to make a difference in a way that wasn't outside of my station. Once I had more time, I could notice when the family needed a little bit of help. Like everything at first, it was innocuous. One morning, the wife asked the husband to pick up peanut butter on the way home from work. He said he would. But when it came time for his 30-minute commute home, I watched from my feed as he put his own address into his car's GPS and started driving home. Not to the store. Great Scott, I thought. He's forgotten the peanut butter. I knew this would upset the wife, and that atmosphere would upset the daughter. And I was so looking forward to watching them all enjoy their special night together, watching corporate television and eating Elvis sandwiches like they always did. Lucky for everyone, I had an unopened jar of peanut butter in my own pantry. Thinking quickly, I grabbed the peanut butter, jumped in my car, and raced over to the house. I knew there was no one home yet, but I would still need to be quick. I learned the security code for the garage weeks earlier. All it had taken was a scant mention to the babysitter on a Saturday night of what the code was. It took everything in me to contain my excitement and actually stepping foot in the place. I felt like I was stepping into a home I had grown up in long ago, a place I'd visually gone over in my head countless numbers of times, now given a different smell by the collision with reality. This was my ascension. I really belonged now. I wasted no more time on wistfulness, though. I let myself into the kitchen through the garage door, opened their pantry, and put the peanut butter in the spot they always kept it. I checked my tablet and saw the father was still about 5 minutes from home. Plenty of time. I made a clean getaway, and later that night, once it was time for Elvis sandwiches and the voice, no one even realized anything was amiss with the peanut butter. The husband forgot he was supposed to get it. The wife forgot she asked him to get it. The daughter didn't care one way or the other because the sandwiches were there. And they had a wonderful night. And I had a wonderful night. I'd found my calling. I was finally becoming the fridge itself. It was no longer only the thought that counted. It was the action. By this point, it may look like I was losing my mind, but whether or not that's true, I certainly had found something that inflamed within me the passions I had long ago misplaced. No longer did I care what anyone else, except for this family, thought. I would listen to them tirelessly for hours on end just to hear a scant errand, a scant honeydew, a small little something that I could provide for them without their realizing it was me. Anything they asked of their digital assistant, it would go through me. Remind me to buy toilet paper. Boom, I buy it and it's being delivered to them. When the wife mentioned the cable bill wasn't paid, I manipulated my way into their account with the cable company and wiped the due amount away. There was even one day where the daughter's bicycle chain snapped. Before they could so much as head out to buy a new one the next day, I'd snuck into their garage that night and fixed it myself. I just wanted them to be happy. It felt so much like I was making a difference. I believed that one day I would become a part of the family, and maybe each of these deeds was a small step in that direction. It wasn't long before the true reality of the situation, my true helplessness, my true pitiful meaninglessness, was brought to light. It was only a week ago, as I'm writing this, that I was happily sipping lukewarm water, eyes clamped on my monitors, watching the husband and wife enjoy a quiet morning together reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. The daughter had already gone out to play in the backyard. But this family's neighbor, this stupid, irresponsible neighbor, had recently taken in a stray dog, some sort of hellhound looking thing, and had been willy-nilly letting it out into their backyard, which was fenced. But I knew, right as I heard the cries of pain, just as the parents at the kitchen table did, what must have happened. The dog had hopped the fence and the beast had ended up attacking our poor daughter, the beautiful shining light of the future. The two parents ran out to the backyard, the husband chasing away the canine. They took her inside, covering the bite, washing the blood from it. She ended up needing to get a tetanus shot, a whole ordeal in and of itself. And on top of that, the neighbor didn't even apologize when the wife talked to them on the phone. I tell you, without shame, that I couldn't help but weep. Here I was, all high and mighty, feeling like I could actually make a difference and be a part of this family. And what do I let happen? A wild mutt is able to simply attack the most precious thing to us? I was no protector. I was no guardian. No, I was a fraud. I was again forced to recognize the reality of my existence. I was nothing more than an ugly, helpless insect. It really hurt me. I felt as if an entire portion of my life had vanished, like a sheep shorn of all its wool. I nearly gave in to this misery completely, but just like always, I had an idea. There was still one way. I wouldn't give up on them. What was at first a terrible occurrence became a gift in and of itself, the gateway to my next transformation, my unveiling. Yes, it was time I did away with the subterfuge and really took ownership of my role as protector. I would present myself to them, I would offer my penance for not protecting our precious daughter, and would take up my place as steward in full, visible dedication. I didn't need new spy technology. My ancestors had given me all the technology I ever needed. It was time to let go of that technology. It was time to lift the shroud. It only took me a few days to prepare my supplies and secure the gift, and only a few days more for my window of opportunity to arrive. By some blessed coincidence, it was our daughter's birthday on that Saturday. This Saturday, I should say. And I would show up to present myself with the gift to end all gifts, an offering not unlike that offered in the Old Testament to their gods. Never again will a neighbor's rabid hound cause poor Charlotte any problems. Never again will we need to fear for her future. It's probably obvious to you by now, madam, but this family I've become obsessed with, it's your family. The smart refrigerator, the network, the phones, the cameras, all these that I've mentioned are the ones in your very home. I'm certain you will have found it strange that this was the only application in your inbox, and you would be correct. I had to get rid of a few dozen other ones to make sure. Why, I would make a sizable bet that you've already realized I will have been watching you read my application this entire time, sitting in your favorite worn leather study chair where you read all your mail, in your office on the second floor. I know Jim will be leaving early this morning, and after he's left, I will enter the garage and I'll wait. I will keep the garage light on so you know I'm there. When you finish reading this, if you find it within yourself to accept this hideous excuse for a human being into your adoring family, as you did my refrigerator, please come retrieve me, and I will forever be your faithful, humble servant. Before closing, I'd like to call your attention back to the beginning of this confession and pray you've kept in mind the ugliness I am made of. Upon reviewing this, please also enjoy the gift I prepared for you. It's already placed in your home for the family to enjoy. Upon opening it, please be cautious. It may be messy and, like me, a little grotesque, but I've always felt it's the thought that counts. Breathless, Francine stared at the last words in the document. What was this? This had to be a joke. This couldn't be real. Trembling, she raised her eyes to the webcam looming over her from the computer monitor. This can't be real. At this moment, Francine's cell phone vibrated in her pants pocket, sending her heart leaping to her throat. Her blood froze, and it took a few rings before she could right herself. She pulled the phone from her pocket, read the caller ID. It was her husband. Jim? Hi, yeah, it's me. Jim, my goodness, I'm so relieved it's you. Yes, honey, it's me. I'm on my way home right now. What's the matter? Is everything all right? You sound excited. It's nothing, she said, staring at the computer screen. Just a weird job application I was reading. For some reason, I thought your call might be coming from the applicant. Oh, Jim said, that is weird. So, Francine said after a pause, what about the cake? Did everything work out at the bakery? What do you mean? Didn't you get it? Her husband said. What? Yeah, I saw the box in the freezer this morning. That pink box that's the size of a cake. I just assumed you had already gotten it. I didn't get anything. Oh, well, okay then. Francine's mouth ran dry. She shook her head vigorously like a dog emerging from water. Again, she repeated to herself, this couldn't be happy. This couldn't be real. No, it's not okay, Jim. It's all right, I can just go pick it up. No, that's not. It's strange, though, her husband continued. What could be in that box in the freezer? The phone slipped out of her hand and dropped to her desk. The applicant's words were still on the screen. I will have been watching you. He could see her right now. He could hear her speaking to her husband on the phone. No, this was a nightmare. Mechanically, as if her body was no longer her own, she rose from the desk, staggered out of her office, down the stairs, to the kitchen. She made it to the refrigerator. She was hyperventilating now. All the blood had left her face and seemingly drained out of her whole body as she reached for the freezer door handle. Inside, there was indeed a pink box. Shakily, she removed the box. It was heavy, setting it on the kitchen aisle. Her fingers felt numb, so it was harder than normal, but eventually she manipulated the cardboard flaps enough to open the box. She braced herself for glassy eyes, for a tongue lolling limp outside of a mouth, for a bed of blood. And inside she found a normal ice cream cake with the words, "Happy 5th birthday, Charlotte," written in loopy icing letters. Francine released the air she'd been holding in as if a vacuum sucked it out of her. She braced herself on the counter, letting the relief wash over her entire body. She never thought she'd be so happy to see an ice cream cake. Slowly, she turned to look at the garage door. The light was not on. Inside the box, she spotted a folded slip of paper tucked in beside the cake. She retrieved the slip of paper and read it. Dear Madam, I hope you'll forgive me for that charade. Let me assure you at this time that everything I wrote in my cover letter was indeed a fabrication. Aside from the admission about the scarcity and competitiveness of game design jobs and the scant knowledge of the name and birthday of your daughter, because you mentioned it in your GDC presentation. The only other personal information I can say to know of you was the coincidental discovery of your purchase of that particular refrigerator model 4 months ago. And it was this knowledge that bore the seed of the idea that would become this fiction. With any luck, it will have set myself apart and piqued your expert sense of excitement well enough to warrant my getting a chance to design games alongside you at your company. I hope I was able to speak the language of games right. My real information is listed on the back of this note with a link to my actual application materials. I eagerly await hearing from you and thank you for your time and consideration. Faithfully yours. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was definitely creepy. Yeah, I think I'll just stay out of my refrigerator from now on. Fine. I can leave it to other people.
Or your smart devices.
The various smart devices, yes. All right, so let's see. I can bring some other people up here. Oh, you have wine. I'm jealous. I drank my drink. Let's see. Who else I got here? So Rebecca, get her on here. I've got Julia on.
More than 4 people now.
I know. It's so crazy. I can do like all the things now. It's amazing. So let's see. I don't know. Let's see. I should probably refill my beverage, but
I'm giving up writing.
What would be the
I'm
thing?
done. I'm done. I'm giving up writing. Tom
Aaron,
blew
you're
it out of
giving
the
up
water.
writing?
I'm giving up writing forever. Tom, that was, and the kicker at the end. The kicker at the end was just perfect. It's just a perfect thing.
I love the kicker, you having the recipe after yours.
No,
I mean, I didn't know it, but I was like, ooh, that's like an extra.
I want to hear more about you, Tom. What's your deal? Where are you from? What's your background?
I'm actually I live in California, but I'm still just getting started writing stories. I went to school for it, but
have you gotten published?
Only in a literary, like a magazine. But that's it. So I'm still looking to query and get some stories out there.
What part
You're
of
just
California?
getting started?
Yeah.
God help us all when you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where in California? Which part of California?
Southern California, Orange County.
Oh, right. There's a lot of smog there.
There is a lot of
and
smog,
strip malls and freeway. Lots
yes,
of freeway.
the type of thing that would make you feel stir crazy. And I used to work in video games, so that also inspired a little bit of the feeling of this.
Oh, so you're not there anymore?
No, I'm not.
My daughter is going to get into the video game industry. Is this not a good thing?
No.
Is this bad?
No, it's actually a great thing. The video game industry is growing a lot, and part of the inspiration for this was that it is a competitive industry, but there's a lot of growth for it, and a lot of great programs for women getting into the industry.
Now, I also wanted to hear about Julia Allen and that Cajun. The Cajun accent was just stellar.
Well, to research the Cajun accent, I spent 2 years in New Orleans, and that was long enough. It's a wonderful place to visit, and it's a great place to live if you're from there, but I missed Colorado and the mountains so much I had to come back home. But the whole idea for the ghost from the 50s living in the head of the very modern policewoman was something that just came to me out of nowhere, and it seemed very intriguing and something fun to play with. And I've got about 120 pages of that novel written.
Well, it's impressive. I mean, I
Nope.
definitely liked what I heard and want to hear more of it.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah.
That's a super fun thing. That was super fun. Now,
Yes.
Rebecca Hodgkins, when did you write those poems? That the second one I think I've read before.
You may have. Yeah, I think it was maybe back in 2014, 2015. So it's been out there for a while.
And that was based, is that based, you had like an actual experience with a creepy carnival guy, right? I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer that.
Hasn't everybody who's ever
Just about to
encountered a
say that.
carnival guy, hasn't it been creepy? Isn't that a
That guy
normal thing?
with the teeth and everything.
Carney, small hands smell
Little
like
hands,
cabbage.
smell like cabbage. That's it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, no,
Really,
I did. That's all we're gonna say.
I've always been
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. What's that, Tom?
I said I've always been envious of people who are writing poetry, especially like the first poem I really like. The poems that can be for kids, I feel like is amazing.
I think that the hardest audience to write for are kids.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge. So yeah.
Yeah, they're tough. For sure.
Tough critics.
No, Matt, you're in Colorado, right? We've met.
Yes, we have indeed.
And what was the inspiration? That story was really that was really cool. That was really cool. Especially the image of the guy saying the Lord's Prayer. And I love the whole like epistolary, like that's just such a cool thing.
Well, that seemed to be kind of the only way to do that. If you tell a story like that from the outside, it somehow doesn't work as well as this was a little unusual. I'd never tried to write that way before, but it worked out well for this.
Yeah.
Back in those days, even people who were, the author was a corporal, but people prided themselves on their ability to write, standard English there. My mother read it and said, isn't he too educated for a private? And I said, no, he's reading the letters from the Civil War. That was pretty common, that men spoke in a sort of educated dialect. So it was really interesting to try to cast it as this letter.
It felt very authentic hearing it.
It did.
Thank you.
Did.
What about Aaron for you? Do you have anything recently you're working on, or is your favorite sort of thing those types of stories?
Man, I love writing horror. I really do. I like it like a lot. But no, I've been actually I'm going to be writing a horror story set in the world of The Cunning Man, my Mormon sorcerer book. But no, I've been writing a lot of men's fiction, men's adventure fiction.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm also working on like a dungeon core novel with a friend of mine that should do. It's like Harry Potter, but it's like people learning how to be dungeons and murdering dungeoneers. But it's all for the good of the universe. So,
Yeah,
That sounds really cool. What was Dungeon Core? Is that what you said?
Well, it's going to be called the Shadowcroft Academy for Dungeons. But it's like in the lit RPG kind of like genre.
That's
so
awesome.
it's like it has like a gaming cultivation element, and it's just like wacky. So it's basically like a Nickelodeon cartoon. It's just over the top. So we have a drunk satyr with a satyr. Satyr, that's what it is, right? Yeah.
Always a good thing.
So
You're
yeah,
talking about the thing with the hooves and the
horns.
yes, yes, okay.
Mr.
Satyr.
Thomas.
Danny DeVito in the Hercules, the Disney Hercules.
Was he
No.
drunk?
Oh,
Now I
Was his
feel-
drunk? He says he either has a drinking problem or a goat problem. He does highly recommend hooves. He's like, dude, I have hooves. It's so convenient, right? There's no little shoes, right? Yeah, it's great. There's a gelatinous knight that's like this big knight thing that's just like goo, like oozing everywhere. And so we meet Marco. He's the satyr, like sliding through the gelatinous knight's goo at this big party. Like, yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, he has a shirt. Hold on. Forgot about this. He has a shirt with an arrow pointing down, and it says, "I'm with stupid."
I love it.
You said you're working on that right now?
Yeah, actually, the first one's done. We're going to write the second one and then publish it. So,
Sweet.
and the second one has like this mannequin mimic named Steve that never talks, but everyone's like, Steve is so funny. And Steve is just like, guys, anyway. So.
Cool. Is there anywhere we can find that first one, or just?
James Hunter is posting it on his Patreon, the Shadowcroft. So, and it'll be out here in a couple months. So, like February, maybe January. So, lots of books, more books faster. So, are we Facebook friends, Tom? We need to be Facebook friends. What's your last name?
If not, then my last name is Broderick.
Okay.
But my pen name is Kichi. So on Facebook, Tom Broderick.
Okay. I'll find you.
All right. Please do.
I want to track your career. You're going to go places.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Aaron would know. Aaron would definitely know. And Aaron's friends with Rebecca and Julia already. So, I mean, he knows good people. Among others, many others.
And you, Amy Armstrong, you're amazing. Where did you come up with this idea to doing this?
Oh my goodness. I actually, it's kind of a funny story. So when I moved to Denver, I guess it's now like 3 years ago, I was having a really hard time in my life and my marriage had fallen apart. I left my husband for this sweet young thing who turned out to be a total asshole and kept hooking up with younger men, which was like, I don't know. You don't learn. I don't learn fast. I'm not a fast learner in some ways. Writing comes naturally. Life does not. What can I say? This gets smarter, this gets stupider. But anyway, so yeah, that all happened and I was feeling very depressed. I was actually suicidal. I thought about killing myself a few times when I was driving home to visit my parents, no joke. Like I'd look at cliffs and I'd go, I could just drive off this, but I had my dog with me. So I was like, well, I don't want to kill my dog, so I won't do it. Sorry if that's an overshare, but I mean, it's real. It's what happened. And then it's what like happened? One day I came home to Denver and I was like, I really think I need to get back to what I wanted to connect to here for really, which was writing. And I found out that this guy, Ed Ward, was hosting a live storytelling open mic session that was dedicated just to stories, mainly short fiction, at the Mercury Cafe in Denver. And so anyway, I've been a regular there ever since that. And, Ed actually, just from the moment that I talked to him on the phone to set up a reading and everything, I mean, he just actually was one of the people who finally gave me some hope that maybe I had some reason to live and continue, by my connection to this work. And then the pandemic hit. And unfortunately, our stories session for March had to be canceled for in person. But I was like, well, I think people need this. I think this is something that we need to do and continue to do. And so I was like, what if I do a live version of this online and make it like an open mic? And because so many of those, not just stories live, but like all the open mics in Denver that I'd attended. Just they had given me such a good sense of connection to the community, the creative community here, and just like seeing all the amazing things that people are doing and the things that just give vibrancy to literature and fiction and the stories we share and the time we share together and like why we do this work. And so I wanted to find some way to continue it. So that's why I do this. Yeah.
It created meaning.
You have one
And-
of those events coming up, right?
I do actually. I think it is highly misguided, but Edward is having a Halloween soiree, as he puts it, on Halloween. And I couldn't say no because Ed asked me, and it's Halloween, and he's paying me, and he's giving me a drink. So I can't. I mean, you know, if you want to summon me, give me money, give me alcohol, and I will be there, of course. So, yes.
Well, this is really great. I love being a part of these, Amy. Thank you so much for helping.
Thank
organize
you.
it. And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love getting to hear the other writers' stories, and especially for everyone who's watching or listening. Thank you.
This is great. I have to sign off.
All right,
tonight.
man.
Just a little story, if it might interest you. My prop here, this was handed down in the family, you know, since it was made in about 1961. And it came to my brother in Florida, who is an enthusiast who shoots black powder and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And he took it to a gunsmith to have it rehabbed. And the first thing the gunsmith said was, "You know, this is loaded, right?" So it had been loaded for, you know, the last 150 years.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And when Joe got it cleaned out, he said, shot it. He said, you can shoot it. He said, the rifling grooves are shot and you have no idea where the ball is going to go.
Wow.
Yikes.
Okay.
On
Surprise.
that note, thanks again. Good night.
All right. Good
All right.
night,
Thank
Matt.
you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.
I know they had to leave too, but the Dollhouse Thieves were great as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll have to let them know. I mean, I don't know. I always say thank you for coming and everything, but you know, yeah, I know that they have a little one, and you know, she can be a bit fussy. So, you know,
Yeah,
as
that's
little
just
people
hard.
can be. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that seems kind of like a wrap for us tonight. I think. I mean, I know we're all starving after hearing about the Spätzle.
Now, the Käsespätzle is no joke. I mean, it's you take dumplings and you fry them in bacon grease and then add cheese. So it's ridiculous. It's so good.
Sounds amazing.
It does sound amazing. Yeah.
You mentioned Julia's Cajun accent too. You did pretty good accent too, Aaron.
My bad German accent. I just think my wife speaks German. So I just think about her and thank you, Tom. I was like, should I do the accent? I'm like, no, you shouldn't. I'm like, it doesn't matter. So
I enjoy it. I like it. We're reading out loud. I like that.
Yeah.
yeah,
It was fun. I think you should always do it.
I had a super fun. I'd like to do this again. This is a lot of fun.
Yes, Aaron, you can come back anytime. You know, you're a much more dynamic host than I am. So anytime you want to come back, it's fine.
When's the next one of these, Amy?
Great, Amy. You really are. Yes,
Aw.
you're a wonderful host.
You are a wonderful host.
Well,
And I think
thank-
I hear an animal at my bird feeders. I hope it's not the bear, but I should probably go now. There's something out there prowling around and making noise. So, you know.
All right. Well, if it's not the bear, Julia, I mean, if it is the bear, don't engage. But yeah.
No, I'll try not to.
Okay. All right. Good
Okay.
night, Julia.
Good night, all.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Good night, Aaron.
Good night. Bye.
Good night, Tom. Good night, Rebecca. Good night, everyone. Okay, so yes, good night, everyone. And just a quick reminder, please do subscribe. There's no money involved. It's not like that. It's just, it makes our channel a little easier to find if we have at least 100 subscribers. So thank you for doing it. And you can get notifications every time we post a new video if you want to, if you just hit the bell and get notified. But again, totally up to you. And I promise, there's no creepy stalking involved or anything like that. Really, nobody here is organized enough to do that to you, I promise. So yes, we will see you again on November. Let me just make sure, because I don't have a memory for dates. I believe it's November 18th. Yes, November 18th at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And the theme is apartment life, actually, which I know you might expect something more Thanksgiving-y. Haha, it's not really, is it now? And we actually have a prompt. I worked with Deb Courtney on this, just to add an extra layer of fun for anyone who wants to read for this. And it does not have to be in the first line of your work. It does not even have to be incorporated verbatim. But it's just a little something for you to think about while you're writing your piece or updating your piece for this. So we thought it would be fun. And it's not living so close to others that bothers me so much. It's the possibility of finding other people's toenails in the carpet. So if that gets you going, definitely PM me on Facebook. We have a group on Facebook called Stories Live. You can join it. You can post in the discussion there. We also try to post, publication opportunities, stuff like that, all that kind of thing. So I really thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the people who read here tonight. And I just want to let you know that your words are important, your thoughts are important, and you are important and loved. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.